All righty. Well, welcome everyone, and thank you so much for taking a few moments to share where you're coming to us from. I'm excited to spend the next hour with you with some of our panelists who you are going to learn so much from. And as folks that are still trickling in, I guess we'll go ahead and get started. All righty. I'm excited to see folks coming from all over the country. It looks like all the states are being represented. All right, Ms. Chelsea, we'll go ahead and get started then. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you all so much for joining us today for the No Kid Hungry Center for Best Practices Summer 2024 Rural Non-Congregate webinar series. We are so excited to share this series that will cover a variety of topics ranging from policy overviews, implementation strategies, and of course, some success stories. The session today is entitled How Community-Based Organizations are Expanding Access to Summer Meals through non-congregate feeding. This summer, community-based organizations in rural communities have an opportunity to operate non-congregate models to better reach children with healthy summer meals. Bringing meals to communities has been proven through research and through the pandemic operations to be one of the best ways to expand access to summer meals programs and to children in rural communities. These flexibilities allow community-based organizations to design programs that best meet the needs of their individual communities. So no matter the size of your summer operations, there are non-congregate models that could help your rural community. Whether you're transporting meals, offering grab and go, doing bulk distributions, there is some sort of flexibility that will allow you to reach more children in your communities. Today, you will be hearing from 3 organizations and how they have approached the non-congregate summer meal program this past summer and how they've worked with various community partners and utilized various flexibilities to reach more children in their areas. My name is Marissa Spady, and I am the senior program manager I'm one of the senior program managers on the state campaigns team for No Kid Hungry, and I have the pleasure of being your moderator for today's discussion. Next slide, please. So just a few things that I want you to be aware of as we spend the next hour together is, first off, the slide deck will be shared with you via email after the webinar, along with the recording. We at No Kid Hungry are committed to making sure that our webinars are accessible and inclusive. Closed captioning is available. You can turn that on at the bottom of your Zoom screen. I would also encourage you to utilize your chat box, which I see many of you are doing already, to answer questions, encourage one another, offer support, and get ideas. So feel free to utilize that. And as our presenters are sharing, if there are questions that you'd like to ask them individually, feel free to answer or put in any questions you have into our Q&A box, and we'll get to those later on in our time together. And so let's go ahead and look at what our agenda will be today. First off, we'll have a welcome. So welcome, we're happy you're here. We'll do some brief introductions now, and then I will go into an overview of rural non-congregate service from summer of 2023 and some of the learnings that we have found at No Kid Hungry. And then I will be turning things over to our nonprofit sponsors who have really just knocked it out of the park and made it happen this past summer with the rural non-congregate programs that they ran. So first off, we will have Shannon Amos, who is the Vice President of Agency Programs with the Hunger Alliance in Ohio. And then I will turn things over to Constance Moore, who's the Food Compliance Officer at the YMCA of Memphis in the Mid-South in Tennessee. And then last but not least, Jamie Bredenbach, the Program Manager at Missoula Food Bank and Community Center in Missoula, Montana. And then we will have an opportunity for that moderated Q&A, and then we'll share some resources that are available for you to utilize this summer. Next slide. Let's go ahead and get started and share that overview with you. Let's talk a little bit about the background and how we got to where we are today. As many of you may be aware, advocates from across the country have long been pushing for greater flexibility in reaching the children who really need the meals during the summer months when school is not in session. So back in 2010, the Healthy Hunger-Free Kids Act was passed, which included summer demonstration projects, which included the opportunity to pilot some non-congregate feeding options. So as those were done over the next couple of years, they were analyzed and reviewed and and again, built more champions to really advocate for the flexibilities in the summer meal program. And then, of course, we all know what happened when COVID hit. We were able to utilize some of the learnings that they had in the pilot programs to take it on a widespread national opportunity to feed children during the COVID pandemic for the next few years. And then in 2023, we had the launch of the rural non-congregate option for summer meals. And we're excited to talk about some of the learnings that we shared. Next slide, please. And next up, here is a slide that talks a little bit about historical summer meals national data. And as you'll see, from July of 2016 to July of 2019, the average summer meals that were served was averaging right around 95 million meals. With that being said, you will see, of course, when COVID hit, that number more than doubled with utilization of the non-congregate waivers that allowed for a widespread option for schools and nonprofit organizations to use those flexibilities. In 2022, we returned back to pre-pandemic participation in summer meals. And then in 23, actually, we noticed that national participation was at its lowest point in over 10 years. And we are still trying to understand and get into the data from the states to understand more where there were increases and decreases that occurred. However, today you are going to hear from a couple of colleagues who are sponsors and those who utilize those flexibilities of the non-congregate option, and to really be able to share where they saw increases and maybe any decreases that may have occurred. So excited to dig into learning more about what each of them were able to utilize. I want to share, next slide, please, a little bit more about the USDA guidance that was provided over the last few years. So in December of 22, the Consolidated Appropriations Act of 2023 authorized permanent option for non-congregate summer meals in rural areas without congregate service. We know that there was a quick turnaround during the winter and spring of 2023, where USDA issued temporary guidance based on past pilots to guide summer 23 implementation in states that opted in. And then, of course, in December of 23, USDA issued its interim final rule, or IFR, establishing the summer EBT program and the rural non-congregate option in the summer meals programs. This took immediate effect to guide implementation for summer 2024, and it's still open for public comment until April 29th of this year to inform the future final rule. No Kid Hungry has worked very hard to create a resource that will help give you some highlights as well as some top takeaways for operators, and that is a 2-page summary of key points with focus differences from 2023 guidance. With that being said, one of the greatest strengths of the non-congregate opportunity to feed for summer meals is that the program provides flexibilities to communities as well as to sponsors to design the program that will best meet each individual need. With that being said, in No Kid Hungry, we've had the opportunity to do debrief sessions, have conversations with sponsors and state agencies, as well as analyzing our grantees who were funded last summer to understand exactly what happened on the ground last year. And one of the pieces that we found the most flexibility was in the service models that different sponsors utilized. And thinking about those distribution models, we saw an opportunity for both schools and community-based organizations to utilize, whether it be a grab-and-go option, it could be walk-up, it could be curbside, it could have been some sort of a hybrid option where there may have been an example of, the children ate lunch on site, they may have been sent home with a breakfast for the next day, or if they ate on site during the week, maybe they were sent home weekend meals as an option. And the other options were potential mobile meals, identifying locations and communities that were easily accessible to families. And then in some cases, there were some home delivery options as well, taking meals directly to homes. In reviewing No Kid Hungry grantees from last year, we found that the distance to the site and the family's access to transportation were the most significant considerations for why a sponsor may have chosen the distribution model that they did. So as you are making your plans for this coming summer, just wanted to share those ideas with you as well. Next slide. I personally had the opportunity last summer to visit upwards of almost 20 different non-congregate sites throughout the area that I live in. I must say that I think the non-congregate option is really an opportunity for sponsors to highlight the amazing things that they're capable of, and they get very creative with being able to serve their meals. I had the opportunity to see a lot of flexibilities, a lot of differences. I saw hot meals, refrigerated meals, frozen meals, some shelf stable, and at some locations I saw all four of those options in one distribution. Of course, that is based on the sponsor and their capacity and infrastructure that's available, but very creative ideas happening. Also, very creative in how they were packaged. Some were bundled, some were bulk, some were unitized. They were boxed, they were bagged, they may have been color coded as well. But either way, I think the flexibility that's allowed in non-congregate was really on high display. And I think that's something that really you'll hear a lot more from our panelists in a few moments with. Next slide. With that being said, given the multitude of choices in how to administer the non-congregate option, we saw many different logistical considerations that went into place. There were a few things that really did bubble up to the top as being some more challenging areas, and I think staffing continues to be a challenge for both our schools and our community-based organizations. However, some of the things that we did learn that may be beneficial to you was the opportunity for those sites to really do some cross training. I know a lot of people were able to cross train their drivers to also be the site monitors that distributed meals, so they didn't have to have two people in a vehicle to pass those meals out. A lot of people found that the part-time support, because they had a variety of ways in which they were able to package meals at one point during the day, or prep meals, and or maybe it was loading and distributing. There was a lot of opportunity for part-time support, which during the summer months when childcare may be a challenge, that really is a benefit to some of the staff. Other of our grantees really spoke to the need for increasing staff wages, providing extra stipends, paying for those site drivers as well, to be able to deliver meals or distribute meals. And a lot of people utilize teams as well as volunteers, whether it be from your faith-based organizations, local communities, whomever in that area that's aware that could help get the meals out. A lot of people got very creative with being able to service and staff those operations. With that being said, we also learned about transportation being sometimes a challenge, whether it was last year or during the COVID pandemic. A lot of different variety of ways of getting meals distributed. Some people took vans or school buses and retrofitted those, or used their food trucks. Some people worked with their school districts to utilize the buses. They just had to hire the driver as well as pay for the fuel. That was an option. Some sponsors were able to reimburse their staff for the meals in which were to use their own vehicle, so they paid for their gas. And last but not least, some folks did rent vehicles to be able to transport meals. So just keeping a few of those in mind, but also I think identifying specific distribution points was another area in which sponsors really took a lot of thought in getting the right location for families. Some people, we had to think about transportation as far as if it was a drive-up model, is it a safety issue? Do we need to reach out to the police and make sure that, traffic isn't blocking anything? Making sure that it's easily accessible to families. Is there any weather condition that we need to be aware of? And do we need to have tents available? Are our signs easily read and understood? And are in the appropriate languages for the people that we are serving in our community? And if there are any walkers that are coming in, do we need to have an easier access point for them? So these are just a few of the logistical ideas that we were able to learn and glean from some of our sponsors from last year that we wanted to share out as a whole. However, as you all are planning your summer meals, next slide, please, program for this coming year, we really wanted to keep the planning process with the caregivers' insights in mind. And with that being said, we did have a team that visited 3 different locations of non-congregate meal service last summer. And we did interviews with 30 different caregivers, 10 at each site, and each of those sites were very different. One was grab and go, one was a mobile meal option, and one was a home delivery. And so we got a variety of feedback. However, there were a few takeaways that really bubbled up to the top as being really important. The first of those was that participants celebrated receiving multiple days worth of meals, whether it was 2 days, 5 days, 7 days, whatever, just the option to not have to show up every single day or every single meal service time for a child to sit on site. With that being said, multiple meals offered a lot more choice and a lot of autonomy for our participants, which resulted in greater food consumption, as well as it was a lot more convenient for our families to be able to pick up those meals, which resulted in happier kids and happier caregivers. Takeaway number 2 was that participants preferred a delivery model. Delivery was the most accessible, convenient, and equitable model for caregivers. Home delivery enabled families and caregivers to participate regardless of constraints that would otherwise inhibit participation, such as access to reliable transportation, a disability, and needing to work or work schedule, other scheduling conflicts, as well as childcare. Next slide, please. And then the last takeaway that we had was that we could all continue to improve how we communicate with families about non-congregate meals. Some families sometimes felt shamed when they inadvertently broke rules they didn't know about. We know as sponsors, there are a lot of rules and regulations that come along with serving summer meals. So how can we communicate these rules and regulations to our participants so that they feel comfortable coming and they don't feel ashamed for accidentally breaking a rule and not knowing all the ins and outs of the program? Also, families would prefer communication to come via text messages, social media, or phone calls versus flyers. I know this is in conversations that I've had with other sponsors recently. What is the best way to get the word out about meals? And I think utilizing technology and the digital age to be able to be in constant contact with those folks in a digital platform of some sort. Also, families express concern about taking food from others who might need it more. So how can we work to dispel any idea of participation limits so that we're not limiting access to others, and that it's really an emphasis on the benefit for the entire community and not just certain people? And last but not least, sometimes participants felt welcome with light and other times they did not. So how can we ensure that the caregivers who are coming to get meals for their children, they feel welcome and respected? And how can we make sure that we are training those staff to make sure that they are able to provide that for everyone that is able to participate? Next slide. And with that being said, as you all are planning out your meals and learning and filling out your applications, we do want to highlight a couple of sponsors that we've worked closely with over the years so that they can share some of their learnings about summer non-congregate over the last year or so. So I'd like to introduce Shannon Amos, the Vice President of Agency Programs at Children's Hunger Alliance out of Ohio, who will share some of her non-congregate success over the years. Shannon, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Marissa, and to No Kid Hungry for inviting us to share on this call. It's really exciting, I think, all the opportunities we have for summer non-congregate meals. And so we're happy to share what we have done and some of the successes and challenges that we have encountered along the way. Next slide. So just to give a little context about our agency, because I think that's important to understand how we operate our summer sponsorship. We are a statewide organization that serves Ohio. So I know that many sponsors are more local and regional sponsors, and having the opportunity to serve sites across Ohio presents both unique challenges and opportunities. And I'll talk a little bit more about those on some of these upcoming slides. But we are a seasoned sponsor of USDA child nutrition programs. We have over 900 unique sites between CACFP and home childcare centers, and after-school programs, as well as our summer sites. We have a weekend meal backpack program that provides weekend meals outside of sponsorship to over 100 childcare centers and schools across the state. We provide nutrition education and after school and summer settings, as well as early care. We work with schools to increase school breakfast participation. And then I think another way that we are a little unique in the summer months is that we work to support other sponsors, other schools, and other community organizations to expand their sponsorship. So we have a team that is on staff with us. They kind of act as a consultant role to go into the community, provide support. Maybe that's outreach and awareness. Maybe it's connecting other sponsors with like sponsors who are doing some similar work, not very unlike here where we're sharing ideas and best practices, maybe some connections to grant funding. We are the campaign partner for No Kid Hungry in Ohio. And so we are able to partner with No Kid Hungry in terms of grant funding to support non-congregate meals. So there's a lot of ways in which we operate in the summer, but we are happy to support others' sponsorship as well as we are expanding our own sponsorship. We know that we're not the best sponsor in some cases, so we're happy to make a connection if we need to. So in 2023, our full sponsorship was 128 unaffiliated sites in around 21 counties, and Ohio has 88 counties, so we're in about a quarter of those. About 116,000 meals served. We offer both cold meal menus in places where we have a cold meal vendor that can provide food for us. So we do all contract work with our vendors through food service management companies. We do not have the ability to prepare, package, deliver our own food. So those are operated solely under contracts. And then we also offer a full shelf-stable meal menu. Because we are in so many counties and sometimes we only have one site per county or other places, we do utilize shelf-stable because there's just not a cold meal vendor available in all places in Ohio. For our non-congregate meal service, last year we served 14 sites. All of them happen to be rural library locations, which is a little unique, but we have a very strong library participation rate with both after school and summer in Ohio. And so I think, especially during pandemic, a lot of rural libraries really kind of embraced the idea to be able to provide food in their communities. And many of them were really disappointed that they could not do that in 2022 under the non-congregate model. So we're slowly starting to get some of those library locations back. I think we'll have an even greater participation rate this year among a lot of rural libraries in Ohio, which are often the only kind of congregate place or just places that, kids can come and have access to somewhere like services or, a literacy event or something like that in their very small towns. There's a lot of those in Ohio. So in our non-congregate model, we served 26,000 meals. So about 20 to 25% of our total meals served was in non-congregate. So of those 14 programs out of our 128, you can see the percentage of meals served is very high. And then because we serve all unaffiliated programs, we really are more of a service provider. We do not own or operate any of our own sites. All of our locations, we deliver meals to, of course, for free. And so each of those locations differ in terms of how they want to distribute food. Some of them are not even open every day of the week, so they might be choosing to distribute multi-day meals based on when they are open. They might be choosing to distribute when they have another weekly event at their library location and they're trying to attract families there. So one of the challenges for us is being able to be flexible enough to meet the distribution, number of days they distribute, the meal types they want to distribute. Some of them have limitations on capacity and how much they can store at their facility, which has been challenging. And so working with each of them to make sure that we know how they want to sponsor, that they can do non-congregate in a compliant fashion, and that we're able to monitor and make sure that we can support them in doing that is both great from a flexibility perspective, but also presents challenges in terms of just kind of extra oversight on our perspective. We had a lot of sites last year, or a good handful, I think of those 14 that did what we now call hybrid meal service, a mix of the congregate and non-congregate. And we're trying to promote that model more this year. Some of those congregate sites that can now add weekend meals, because we offer a shelf-stable menu, offering shelf-stable meals that can be sent home on weekends is kind of a no-brainer. So if there's capacity at the site to do that, we're trying to increase awareness about those options and do some outreach to our existing partners for that. We're not looking to replace congregate meals in any fashion. We're trying to kind of just expand what they're able to do. So a lot of our programs say only offer lunch, maybe from like a 10 to 2 period. So how can we make sure that those kids go home with breakfast, for example, and really expanding a lot of the hybrid options available to sites and make them aware of that. And then, as I already said, our non-congregate meals are all shelf-stable meals because we are delivering so many at a time. We're often doing a once a week or every other week delivery to pretty remote locations so that they can do multi-day distribution. Next slide. So just a couple of highlights from our sponsorship. We have that both for efficiency perspective and just kind of lessons learned. So we have one vendor for our shelf-stable meals that provides meals to our regional local vendors. So we order through one large vendor. We get great pricing because of that. He then distributes to our regional hubs, I guess you could call them, our regional vendors. Then they take those meals we order through our local vendors to distribute to our local site locations. So this really provides a lot more delivery flexibility for us. We can do more frequent deliveries from smaller, more regional options that we have available for vendors. And for some of our small sites, as I've said, that have very little capacity to store meals, we've been able to do more frequent deliveries in order to make sure that they are they can provide all of the multi-day distribution that they want. And then I think an opportunity that we have as a statewide sponsor is that we can help fill the gaps. So as I said, we kind of work on both sides. We both support other community sponsors as well as schools to increase their non-congregate options, to make them aware of what their non-congregate options are. And I think in some cases, even if schools are doing, and some other community sponsors are doing summer feeding, they can't always do it as comprehensively as they need to. And so if we can partner with them to help fill some gaps, maybe it's very small sites that can't be served. We get a lot of calls from very small sites that won't be picked up by another sponsor because they just cannot justify the delivery to those programs. We're able to step in usually and fill the gap there with a shelf-stable menu. And just seeking out those that just don't have another option. So those are really a benefit. There's over 600 public school districts in Ohio, so we can't get to all of them. But as much as we can help with outreach and awareness, that's going to be a primary focus for us. There's so many new things, there's so many models, there's so many options about how you can do a full non-congregate operation and sponsorship, or to do hybrid. And so just trying to make sure people are aware of what they can do, I think, is a big challenge and an opportunity for summer of 2024. And then another thing we're focusing on now that we have interim final rule and we have a little bit more detail about what that looks like in kind of a permanent fashion moving forward, is really to focus on how do we collect information on our applications successfully and comprehensively, both for our own needs to know when we deliver, how we can deliver, how much we can deliver, those types of things, but then also the integrity plan that is laid out by USDA and some of the questions that need to be answered by anybody operating non-congregate or hybrid really are an important piece of our application process to make sure our state gets what they need from an application perspective. So really trying to shore that up before we release our applications and make sure that we've got all of the options outlined. Trying to think through all of the options and combinations of what people could do and would ask for is really important to get us started on the right foot for summer of 25. And then also that point of service tracking and making sure that that is comprehensive for the models that everybody wants to do. We had some site locations that wanted to do, say, 5 days a week of distribution, but on multiple days per week, which could have led to an overlap situation with, with kids and max meals per day. So how do we track that accordingly? How do they, take attendance if they need to, even if it's not required? It might be needed to in a non-congregate setting where there's some overlap happening with distribution. So just trying to think through all of those things up front makes a much smoother entry into summer, and especially for some of you who have maybe a number of site locations, larger sponsorship, trying to do all of those 2-week visits and then 1-month visits for a lot of different sites becomes very crazy in that month of June, especially. So just trying to plan ahead to ease into the busyness of summer. We have found that that has made a difference in the past, and we're kind of relooking at that to shore that up for 2024 and beyond. So I think that's all I have, Marissa. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Shannon. That was super informative. And we may have a few questions at the end for you. So thank you. And next up, I'd like to pass things over to Constance Moore, the Senior Food Compliance Officer of Nutrition Services with the YMCA of Memphis and the Mid-South from Tennessee. Thank you, Ms. Constance.
Hey, Marissa, thank you. Hey, everyone on the call. As Marissa stated, I'm the Senior Food Compliance Officer at the YMCA of Memphis and the Mid-South here in the lovely state of Tennessee. Next slide, please. One thing that I want to discuss about the YMCA of Memphis is that I typically will say bulk meals, and a lot of people refer to it as multi-packs. So in the state of Tennessee, during the Rural Non-Congregate SFSP, we are allowed to provide 7 days of meals at one time. And so that's what we call our bulk meals. So when we serve non-congregate, we're giving out 7 breakfasts and 7 lunch to each child in the household. All of our meals, as I stated, are multi-packs for non-congregate. We also have congregate sites that are inside of Shelby County, and we do same-day meals there. For us at the Y, all of our meals are cold prep. We do not have a vendor. We purchase all of our items directly from the source, or from a vendor like Cisco and US Foods, such as that. But we also do directly from the source. So when the food items come to us, they're already cold, and we have a production facility, a warehouse, where we're able to pack them. You'll see on the picture there, I'm with some No Kid Hungry staff when they came down to Memphis and toured the nutrition services department. What we do is we make sure that our menu is out and our staff is able to pack according to the menu. So for SFSP in the state of Tennessee, we begin the day after the school year ends. So last year school ended May 21st. We began May 22nd. We were able to serve 52 days of daily meals, Monday through Friday. And for our bulk, our multi-day meal pack services, we served 8 days of Saturday meals. We did Saturdays because that's what we did prior to the SFSP rural non-congregate rule coming in. And so we just felt that we would continue with the model that we use. During that time, we were able to serve almost 40,000 of the bulk meal bags, 40,000 bags over the course of 8 days. Next slide, please. So for us, trying to get outside of Memphis, Shelby County, we had to look into the actual rural areas where we can go. So if you look at the map, you see orange, yellow, brown, green, red. Those are all of the areas that we serve inside of Shelby County. A little bit outside as well, but for the most part, those are not the rural counties. We had to go outwards. So look above, north of the orange dots, and you'll see 4 blue dots. Those are the rural areas that we served last year. We went out as far as Halls, Tennessee, which is almost an hour and a half from our central location. We served at these 4 sites in 3 different counties. We served every Saturday from June 17th through August 5th. The places that we served, we considered them high traffic during the week. So we had to go out and we had to ask our partners to locate areas where there was a lot of foot traffic, so that when we come up on a Saturday, we would be able to get the parents our children's attention. We chose the Board of Education, Criminal Justice Complex, an elementary school, and a hospital. And the way that we advertised in those areas, we use yard signs and billboards. Our advertisement stated that free meals were served on Saturday. We transported our meals there in refrigerated trucks. I understand that a lot of us have staffing issues. And so another reason we use Saturdays is because we were able to get the drivers to flex their time during the week so that they could reach their 40 hours by working on a Saturday morning. Next slide, please. So here's a little bit of data. I joined the YMCA in March of 21. Summer had already been established. Again, we were still able to use some of the COVID rules during that time, summer of 2021. So I didn't really start getting a lot of concrete data until summer of 2022. The thing with the state of Tennessee, we had to wait. So summer 2022, we had to wait to see if we were going to be able to continue to do the bulk meal service. And then summer of 2023, we had to wait to see if it was going to be allowed under the new rule now, the SFSP rule non-congregate. During summer 22, we had 6 metro sites. And I say metro because they were inside the city limits of Shelby County. The state of Tennessee allowed us to serve there. And we served at about 4 community centers and maybe 1 church. And during that time, we served 64,715 meals. That totaled about 9,245 bags. Remember, we give out 1 bag of 7 days worth of meals for every child you have in your household. So we equate the bags to the number of kids served. We do understand that parents came back on multiple Saturdays. So again, we would do unduplicated numbers if it came down to that. So during summer of 22, we were able to do 6 days of Saturday service. Here's the thing with summer 23, we had to wait. We understood that we had to wait, but we had already made promises to some of our community neighbors, and we knew that we would be in rural sites. So we only did 4 rural sites. During that time, we claimed 39,634 meals, which equated to about 5,662 bags per kid. If you note on this slide, I tell you that we did 6 days of Saturday service. We did. Those were the 6 days of Saturday service that we claimed. Because again, we were waiting on the state of Tennessee to give us approval. Prior to that approval, we had already let 2 sites know that we were coming. And we got a call like the week before that said the parents are calling to be sure that we'll be out there. The YMCA stated we have already placed signs. We are going out there. So for the 2 days of Saturday service prior to approval, we did serve. We did not claim those meals, but we had to go ahead and serve because we had made a promise to certain areas. So our summer 2024 goals, these are the goals that we are working on now. We hope that this comes to fruition. We are looking to increase our sites to about 8 to 10. We have already met with some West Tennessee partners. We know for a fact that we'll go back to where we were last year, and we're going to go to different counties. In those different counties, we are going to target certain areas. I would like to target apartment complexes. Another place that we'll be looking at is healthcare services. We definitely do believe that we will be serving over 70,000 meals this summer. With 7 meals per bag, we will reach more than 10,000 children. And we do believe this because as opposed to doing 1 day of the week, which we were doing Saturday mornings, we're looking at doing multiple days per the week. And how we'll accomplish that, if you were a Saturday site last year, you will remain a Saturday site. But if we're bringing you on new, and I'm going back to let you all know where I live, and you probably don't know that, but that's okay. In Northwest Tennessee, let's say Halls, Tennessee is Northwest, and we did you on Saturday, then we'll go over here to towards the east and do you on a Wednesday. We're trying to make sure that the distance involved will not allow you to double dip and come from this site to that site. We do want to maintain integrity in our program at all times. Next slide, please. So how do you reach the rural areas? So for us, we are scouting the area. We have had a lot of our employees let us know different areas that may be in need. We have already reached out to 2 churches that are outside of Shelby County. We also use the USDA rural designation map. And I would advise you again, start looking now. We are basically in April. Summer for us starts when school ends. So we should already have our sites ready to go for us. Find areas of high traffic. Again, look where parents are guardian frequent, places that they go. As I told the panel yesterday, when we were discussing our sites from last year, one person stated, well, we should not go back to the Criminal Justice Complex Center. Why not? Because we shouldn't be associated with that. Fact of the matter is, we know that the parents do go to the Criminal Justice Complex Center. We also know that the site that we served at last year sold out every Saturday prior to the end time, because we'll tell you we're there from like 9 to 12. So by 10:30, 11, that truck was completely free of the 200 bags that we took every Saturday morning. So what we're not going to do is start labeling sites based on their name or what's going on there. What we look at is high areas of traffic, especially foot traffic, and we also want to make sure that our drivers are safe at all times. So also find areas where children gather. Children gather in trailer parks, in the neighborhood park, and at church. One thing I want everyone to know is that you don't have to serve a meal every day. That's the whole purpose of the non-congregate. You don't have to serve a hot meal if you're unable, because again, all of our meals are cold. We may have a couple of chef stable items, but for the most part, all of our meat grain combos are cold. What we want is to make sure that we're always able to feed a child. That's the goal. Next slide, please. So what we're doing differently, I did state that we are looking at different days of service. One of the things that I feel, trying to get this point across to others, rural areas don't shop on weekends like urban areas. Memphis, Shelby County is a huge metropolitan area. Parents work 8 to 4:30, 9 to 5. When they get off, they get their kids and they go home. However, in a rural area, when the parent gets off, what they attempt to do is try to get most of their chores or tasks done before they drive home. We have to look at the distance between where the parent works and how long it takes them to get home. Because if they're off on a Saturday morning, what is the likelihood that they're going to come back out and come to our site to get a meal bag for their child? So that's why we're looking at serving maybe on a Wednesday night, which is typically a Bible study night, or a Thursday afternoon prior to Friday, because people get paid on Friday and things get a little lax. So let's try to reach them on a Thursday afternoon during lunch break. It's just different ways to think about it. Common areas where people gather, again, being in Tennessee, we know that I can just blink my eye and I see a Dollar General in a field by itself. I just don't know. It's just over there alone. But what we're going to do is we're going to try to place some signs there. We're going to be so very polite and ask them if they could put up a poster letting parents know that the YMCA is providing free meals. Another thing, we're going to seek out community events and partner with them. Again, church, vacation Bible school, neighborhood civic meetings, and a water park visit. I myself don't know where water park is. I will not be seeking that out. I don't do water. Okay, and we're going to ask local shops and stores if we can use their parking lot once a week. Again, we don't want to just pull our truck up, as lovely as it looks with, serving up smiles. We just don't want to sit there and say that we're passing our meals to kids. It's not going to look good. But we want to let them know ahead of time that we're coming. And if we could place a sign, perhaps in their yard, a poster in their window, if we can put something on a light pole outside the building, we're going to ask these places if we can begin to advertise. And we want to start advertising at least by May 1st. Again, that's for us. I think that's my last slide. Next slide. Yeah, that's me.
Awesome. That was so helpful, Constance. I love your Dollar General analysis. Well, thank you so much. Next up, I'd like to bring Jamie Brinbach to share from the Missoula Food Bank and Community Center from Missoula, Montana, and she is the program manager over the summer food program there. So Jamie, please take it away. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Marissa. And thank you, Shannon and Constance, for sharing. I so appreciate learning from everybody and love how many people are here today. And just know that we're all part of making sure kids have healthy food and access to food this summer. I am the program manager with Missoula Food Bank and Community Center. Our mission is to lead the movement to end hunger through advocacy, volunteerism, and healthy food for all. We nourish community. It is our vision to see a community that embraces food justice where no one feels shame or experiences stigma when asking for help. And we do our best in implementing summer meals with that same mentality. Next slide, please. An overview of our organization. We are a pantry, a food bank that serves Missoula County. 1 in 5 individuals in our county access our store at least once in a calendar year. In addition to our main facility, we have 4 satellite pantries as well as our mobile meal bus that provides groceries during the summer during our meal distribution, as well as during schools out days during the school year. We have a staff person on hand who helps with application assistance. Most of their time is spent helping people apply for SNAP, Medicaid, some TANF, the LEAP, and schools for the free and reduced meal application forms. We refer folks who come to our store to lots of other different resources depending on individual needs. We have several child nutrition programs. Our SFSP is just one of them. We also are a CACFP sponsor. Our backpack program referred to as Empower Packs. And then we have a newer to us program that we call Kids Table School Day, which provides snacks to schools to help bridge the gap between breakfast and lunch and after school meals. Our senior nutrition programs are CSFP, which is a federally funded program. We have a fresh food box program, which is a complement to that. Folks do pay for that program. It's like a CSA style where you get either a small box or a large box of perishable foods. And folks pay however they can, and we have been approved as a SNAP vendor for that program. The majority of our work is done by volunteers. We have about 22 full-time staff members, but we have around 650 volunteers every month for 3,500 hours each month. Next slide, please. So this is the state of Montana. Missoula is on the west side of the state. Our service area is Missoula County, as well as there's a town just over the border in Mineral County where those arrows are pointing that we provide meals to as well. Next slide. This is a closer look at Missoula County. The Alberton, Frenchtown, Lolo, and Clinton are our non-congregate rural meal locations. We have operated Alberton, Frenchtown, and Lolo for several years and are hoping that we can add Clinton into this coming summer to provide bulk meals using those guidelines for summer 2024. Next slide. All of our meals are cold prep, cold serve. So most of our non-congregate meals are grab and go Monday to Friday. Friday, we do have extra meals so that folks can take home for the weekend. We use our Empower Packs we hand those out on Fridays at all of our non-congregate and other open meal sites. And they have the equivalent for a breakfast meal for compliancy in them. And so we use those to claim for breakfast meal. we felt like the non-congregate was a no-brainer during the pandemic when that happened, and all of the waivers were implemented. We saw a huge increase in meal participation. And so when 2023, there was kind of a midsummer switch, that was very exciting for us. And we are really thrilled, or I guess that was in 2022. We were really thrilled for the new rules around non-congregate meals, and feel like families have more access to the necessary nutrition that they need. So we continue to operate the non-congregate meals in as many locations as possible. Last summer, we served about 65,000 meals at all of our sites, including our non-congregate sites, half of those being lunches. 16,000 of them were at our non-congregate meal sites. Next slide, please. Here is the data regarding our different meal sites from when we were in congregate pre-pandemic and through last summer. So you can see there that there is a significant increase from congregate to where we are now in providing grab-and-go non-congregate style meals. And so we feel like that is the best for the communities that we're able to serve them in, and will continue to do so because more kids are getting the nutrition that they need during the summer months. Next slide. Like I said, all of our meals are cold prepped, cold serve. We strive to offer a whole grain in every meal, as well as we do 1% white milk. Just because of time constraints in packing meals, often we do a shelf-stable fruit or vegetable option. So fruit cups or applesauce, those little fruit squeezy pouches. We do a vegetable juice. And then the other component is a perishable fruit item. I love seeing menus and learning from everybody because I always feel like I can come up with new ideas. So I have shared some of our menu ideas here. Historically, we were doing peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, but due to increase in meal numbers, we have had to switch to Uncrustables, so the paired peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, and that just helps us save time so we can continue offering perishable produce every day. So this is a lunch menu example. Our next slide has a breakfast menu example. Because, like I said, we have so many volunteers that help us to make, pack, serve our meals. Our staffing budget is lower than some organizations, and so we are able to spend more money on our food as in that reimbursement dollars, as opposed to having to also cover a lot of staff out of that and paying, kitchen staff. So we do offer a protein item with our breakfast most every day. We have, next slide, yep, thank you, a supper-like menu. These are different than just your meat and cheese or peanut butter jelly sandwiches that are a little more supper-esque, but as we all know, supper and lunch are the same requirements, so these also are qualify for a lunch menu. And some very popular, our pizza is, think Lunchable, right? Pizza Lunchable. That was the inspiration, but that is one of our more popular menu items. If anybody has any, suggestions for other meal ideas, I'm always open to learning about them from other folks. When we have leftovers at the end of distribution, we can disassemble them. Some of the things, because they're little cartons of milk, can be reused for the following day. We do serve our meals the following day, first in, first out. But if there are items, it's a Friday and we have a little some leftover meals, we will then take those to the local homeless shelter, and they use the leftovers in their weekend meals for individuals accessing their services. Next slide, please. Thank you so much for being here, and hope to learn from everyone else as well.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Jamie, and to all of our panelists. You all were amazing, and you've given so many great details about your programs. We've had quite a few questions come in around menus. So I just want to, and I thank you, Jamie, for that, showing us examples of what you served. Just to let everyone know, as part of our non-congregate summer webinar series, there will be a specific webinar coming in April. We do not have the date just yet, but we are working on it. So be on the lookout for a menu specific webinar that will go into detail on the variety of different meals that we have seen, and that may be of benefit for you as you're thinking about planning for the summer. So that is one that I wanted to make sure right off the bat that everyone, because there are a lot of questions about menus coming through. But also there were a couple other questions that came in that folks were interested in. So I will open this up to our panelists very quickly before we wrap things up. But for those of you who are just panelists, what questions did you include on your applications that you sent to your partner agencies who are wanting to serve non-congregate meals? And I think, Shannon, you alluded to this a little bit about utilizing those applications. So are any questions that come to mind that you think would be beneficial for others who are thinking about including those on their applications for sites?
We took the lead from our state agency who was developing a Google form to submit non-congregate integrity plans to them. And so we asked them for that list of questions ahead of time. And then that helped us build the questions that we needed to ask to our non-congregate sites. Some of them did not apply to us. For example, we don't do bulk delivery. So, we just kind of pulled out and customized ours related to that. But I think just drilling down into the specific, at least in terms of days of distribution, meal types offered, how many days at a time, especially if they're doing multiple days per week of distribution, questions around how they're going to avoid duplication. I think somebody asked that maybe in another question in the chat or the Q&A. But if we have any sort of concern that there's going to be overlap, we are asking our sites to take attendance, and our state is saying they have to kind of sign in almost as they go and pick up meals to avoid that. And the site is responsible for that. And obviously as a sponsor, we're responsible for monitoring that. So that's how we are. Those are some of the questions, but just kind of thinking through all of the different scenarios has been helpful for us.
Wonderful, wonderful. Constance or Jamie, or do either of you care to answer or share any questions you might utilize for any of your sites, or also addressing the duplication and preventing that?
So for our sites, if they want to come aboard under YMCA sponsorship, we do ask them, of course, where they're located and how many kids they expect and what they want to serve. One of the questions I had is, are we claiming that snack because it's only if it's asked? And I explained that we typically do breakfast and lunch, but if they don't want breakfast and would prefer an afternoon snack, we'll do lunch and a snack. We're trying to avoid duplicating that, having parents and children be duplicated by keeping them a certain distance away. While we have not established that distance, we do believe that more than 50 miles from each site would be sufficient enough for us. And I know that it's sufficient enough for the state of Tennessee.
Right.
I would agree with both Constance and Shannon. I think distance between our non-congregate sites, they're 40 plus miles apart. And so as we all know, gas is expensive. And so for families accessing free meals, paying for gas to go get another lunch that's 50 miles away is not always an option for them. So we don't worry about that as much as at our non-congregate sites. And because we're doing, just daily meal distribution, and then multiple days for over the weekend, we don't feel like there is a duplication happening. We do have grants and donated dollars that help to fund adult meals. And so when a family shows up and might not have brought all of their children, and we ask how many of these meals are for kids and how many of them are for adults, and are able to just say yes and provide the number of meals needed for everybody in the household. That builds trust amongst the individual serving the meals and the families that are picking them up, and helps to just break down those barriers of stigma and uncomfortability, for not only telling the truth and being able to give out all the meals in the way that they're intended, but opens doors to access other services as well, and help can connect families with additional resources.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much. You all are a wealth of knowledge, and I'm sure we could have Q&A for much, much longer. However, we are about at time, and I did want to share, next slide, a few quick resources that will be available to anyone who is interested in participating. Go ahead, next slide, please. We have put together, we know that implementing a non-congregate program, there's a lot of facets that go along with it. So there is an implementation guide that's available on our Center for Best Practices website that you are welcome to utilize and get lots of ideas from. We also do have two grab and go success stories, one from Jamie's food bank, as well as one of the food banks in South Carolina, just to give you just some ideas as well. You're welcome to check those out. And of course, we have our Summer Meals Outreach Toolkit. Constance asked for this just the other day about how she could utilize that and get the word out about the meals that are happening in her area. So feel free to download this, personalize them as best you can. The templates are available in English and Spanish. Next, please. And then, of course, there is our No Kid Hungry text-in line and the free Meal Finder app if you want to help communities figure out where meals are closest to them. This will be a great resource and tool available for all. Next step. And then last but not least, we would love for you to stay in touch with us. If you will subscribe to our newsletter, you'll be the first one to learn about upcoming webinars, any new resources, as well as grant opportunities as well. And of course, you can always visit us at Center for Best Practices website right there. And if anyone is interested in reaching out about grant funding and additional resources or potential grant funding, we do have an inquiry form that you are welcome to complete, and someone from our team will be happy to follow up with you. And we, of course, appreciate you spending the last hour with us. At the conclusion of our webinar, there'll be a 5-question survey that will pop up in your window browser. If you wouldn't take a moment just to let us know about your experience today, what you learned, how we can improve, because we know that your time is valuable and we want to make sure that we are providing you with information that will be most beneficial to you. So if you wouldn't mind completing that. And thank you so much for joining us and spending an hour with us. And we hope that it was helpful for you, and we look forward to being in touch in the next week or two. Thanks so much. Have a great summer.